Well, I think the fact that the United States did not participate with Israel in this attack is being read in Tehran as an indication that there is daylight between what the United States still wishes to achieve and what the Israelis are trying to achieve. And let's remember, those of us who understand the territorial separations and aspects of Iran's nuclear installations know that Israel's, even with these attacks and even with these rolling attacks, Israel doesn't possess the type of munitions that could destroy the deep underground bunkers in which Iran has hidden a great deal of its centrifuges. Even if Israel continues these rolling attacks by fighter jets, it's hard to know whether even Israel will be able to assess that it was able to destroy, for example, the Natanz or the Fordar nuclear installations because it lacked the bombing capacity to reach deep underground.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you about the situation in the region as well? How do you expect key Arab states to react, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE, particularly, of course, ex-Saudi Arabia, those Arab states still inside the Abraham Accords?
I think it depends on whether or not Iran retaliates against Israel in a way that would cause the United States to call on its allies in the Middle East to help provide the intelligence and cover the way the Arab Gulf states particularly did and the Saudis did in 2024 when Iran launched a retaliatory attack on Israel, and the United States as an Arab allies were able to help Israel interdict that retaliation. But you can expect the commentary to come out of the Arab world to be that they considered this the most inappropriate action by an Israeli government, given the fact that they were willing to serve as parties to a consortium to transfer Iran's nuclear installations as a way of unwinding this crisis.
And do you believe that any of these Arab states would support an additional move against Iran here if we saw these efforts continuing on the Israeli side, with or without U.S. support?
Listen, the Arab states are always winking and nodding at the Israelis to do the dirty work that they unfortunately are unable or unwilling to do. There's no love lost no matter what the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and the Iranians have been able to reconcile each other, and ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia and the other Arab states have improved. Iran with a nuclear weapon is an Iran that would have more insurance to rebuild its proxies in the Middle East and to, in effect, have that as an insurance policy against any either Israeli, much less an American retaliation. Donald Trump was never going to want to arbitrarily and unilaterally attack Iran if somehow the IAEA or the Israeli government announced with irrefutable proof that Iran had crossed the line and weaponized its nuclear program.
So, Marc, let's also take a step back and look at what could potentially happen next here as we continue to assess this breaking news this morning. Obviously, the focus now shifts to how Iran might respond. You and I have just spoken about some of those retaliation options, but walk me through the message that you believe the Iranian leadership will want to send now, not just back to Israel, but also to the United States.
That Israel blew up the opportunity, so to speak, for there to be a negotiated settlement, notwithstanding the lack of best intentions by Iran. Number two, the Iranians are deathly afraid that this is perhaps the gambit that would bring the United States, Israel, and the Arab states to see a weakened Iran, to foment unrest inside Iran, so that it would essentially serve as a signal to the Iran opposition groups and the Iranian people at large that they have risen up often only to be repressed by the regime. If the regime is on its back foot, this may instigate further destabilization inside. Let's be clear here. Iran has been severely weakened, not only by losing its proxies, it's also been severely weakened economically. And the economic cost of sanctions has undermined the capacity of this government to maintain an ironclad control on the population. Now, the population is going to unite from a nationalistic point of view. But if they see this regime somehow decapitated and teetering, who knows what this may mean of having hundreds of thousands of Iranians taken to the streets, and therefore, in effect, have the Arab states, the United States, and Israel see an opening to help support what essentially should be and could be a unilateral uprising within Iran.
Mark, you heard earlier Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying this operation is not over and it could perhaps potentially run for the coming days. How soon before Iran responds, in your view?
I no longer believe that the Iranians are going to play right into the hands of the Israelis and the United States and launch one military strike that could be easily interdicted by a combined United States, Arab Gulf, Israeli defense perimeter against it. The Israelis know that the Iranians have agents around the West Bank. The Israelis are having a terrible time quelling unrest based on the fact that there's been a significant infiltration of Iranian agents to stoke violence against the Israeli occupation in the West Bank. Number two, look, there's no telling what remnants of Hezbollah's missile capacity exists. Number three, Iran still has a significant ability to inflict harm, although I doubt that they would do this, against American troops in both Syria and Iraq. Finally, Iran has dispersed agents of terror around the world to strike at Israeli targets. They've proven their ability to do this. They've targeted for assassination any number of Israeli leaders and American officials over the years.
Mark, what we've also seen since the October 7th attack on Israel has been the re-emergence of a far more emboldened country. Israel seemingly happy to go it alone with or without the United States to decapitate and take out agents of terror, perceived or otherwise. We've also seen significant Israeli attacks against those Iranian proxies. You mentioned Hamas, Hezbollah, and of course the Houthis as well. What is your understanding of the state of the Iranian proxies today, and to what extent should we expect some kind of reaction from them, particularly from Hamas and particularly from Hezbollah? What's your view on that?
Well, look, the Israelis are bogged down in what essentially is a endless war against what the Israeli government believes is a military fight to defeat Hamas. And look, the fact remains is that Hamas has refused to surrender. Palestinians are still dying by the dozens every day. Israeli troops are losing their lives at a war that Netanyahu believes or asserts to the Israeli public that he can win. And there's increasing doubt that Israel could ever defeat Hamas. The object now is to basically convince what remains of Hamas and its political leadership to pack up and leave, and they don't seem to be too interested in doing so. Hezbollah's military capacity to inflict harm from the southern section of Lebanon has been severely curtailed, but Israel was never able to completely destroy all of the missiles that Hezbollah still has north of the Litani River and in redoubts in the Bekaa Valley. Now, is there still a control and command operation that would take orders from Iran to launch attacks against Israel when a Lebanese government is trying to prevent anything like that from happening? That's a very interesting sideshow. And then you have the Houthis. The Houthis almost shut down Ben Gurion Airport about 2 weeks ago with a missile strike. The Americans essentially got the Houthis to be neutral against American shipping interests, but the Houthis are still able to, and time and again they've proven that while their Israeli missile defense is there, Houthis have been able to get their missiles through occasionally against Israel.
Would you say that the greatest risk right now is indeed then in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, if there's a belief that the regime inside Iran is teetering, and that they have to prove that there's a worldwide cost for Israeli aggression. And they're watching the rise of crude oil the way you and I are this morning. If the Israelis attacked, and what I've heard is that they did attack energy installations, well, we haven't seen the damage reports from that yet. But I suspect when you're back on the air tomorrow, you're probably going to see that there's been some damage to Iranian oil installations.